Hi Upstream. Today we're going to be making Taco Tatoes. This is a really simple recipe and it's one of my family's favorites. So you should have your potatoes, your taco seasoning, that should have already came in your kit, as well as your recipe. Now this might sound a little weird, but if you look and see number 1 on our recipe, it says to heat your oven to 450 degrees, but to place your cookie sheet in it. And you're gonna need the biggest cookie sheet you have. And we're actually gonna do that. I'm gonna set the oven to 450. I'm not gonna spray anything on it. I'm just gonna heat the pan, okay? So, bake. And then I'm just gonna place it in. It's really important not to spray it or put anything on that pan, because if you do, it'll smell up your whole house. I've done it. But we're just wanting to heat the pan up. And the reason you'll find later is the sizzle factor, okay? But so now, while that's heating up, we need to wash our potatoes. Now all of your potatoes, some of them, most of them are great. Some of them might have some imperfections. We're gonna scrub them at the sink, and then if we need to, we'll just cut the bad parts out. See you at the sink. Okay, so to scrub your potatoes, get a clean scrubber, and you're really, whoops, this water's getting way too hot. You're really just scrubbing it so that you get all the dirt off. Now, if you see holes like this, later on we'll check and see if that's actually a bad spot. But just scrub them really well. And then set it aside and go to the next one. So we've scrubbed our potatoes. There should be a difference in the color after you've washed them. This one's pretty dark brown. This is an unwashed potato. It should be a nice light golden brown if you've scrubbed it well enough. Now, if you see, there might be some imperfections in your potato. If there's little black pieces, you can just carve them out. I know I've done that actually on this one right here. And the big thing is anytime you're roasting any vegetables or even meat for that matter, you need to have the potato chunks or the meat chunks in similar sizes. If you don't, if you have some that are big and then some that are small, they won't cook evenly. Some will be overcooked and some will be undercooked, and it'll be still really crunchy, and you don't want crunchy potatoes. It's just not good. So the way we do this is we try to make sure that all of our potato chunks are about 1 inch cubed. So what I do, I actually just cut a potato in half, and then I usually cut it in thirds, and then cut it in similar size chunks, just like that. And then scoop it up and put it in my bowl. Same thing with this one. You try to cut them evenly. Oops. Now, as you can see, I've got some different size right here. Okay, these ones I'm not gonna put in the pan because they're gonna burn. But I've got my big potato right here. I'm gonna cut it in half. Woo, that's a firm potato. And then I'm gonna cut it in thirds again and just cut them in even sized chunks. Now, as you see, I had about 5 potatoes. Most of you would have had between 4 to 6 potatoes. I actually gave you about 2 pounds. And for this recipe, if you want it really taco-y, you can add the full packet. But this is really a recipe that's to taste, which means how much you actually want. So I have all my potatoes right here, and for this amount, I'll use my whole taco seasoning packet because my family likes it. But if maybe you don't like things spicy or you just want a little bit of taco flavor, it's okay to only add half. So right now we are up to number 4, which is add potatoes, oil, and taco seasoning in a large bowl. So I have my potatoes. I'm going to, this is a good way, that's a little good tip in order to actually get all the seasoning at the bottom. You just shake it like that. If you want, you can zoom in on the bowl. I'm gonna add my taco seasoning. And then I'm gonna take my oil. You can use any oil. You can use canola, vegetable oil, olive oil. I'm gonna do 2 tablespoons. And then I'm gonna use my spoon and I'm just gonna stir to coat it. We want all of the potatoes to be coated nicely with that taco seasoning. So they're all gonna look pretty reddish orange. And now they're ready for the oven. But my oven hasn't come up to temperature yet. I'm gonna look and see. It's almost there. My oven is up to temperature. I'm actually gonna let it sit for about 5 more minutes because I want that cookie sheet to be really, really hot. So I'll see you in 5 more minutes. So it's time to take your pan out. Make sure you have a really good pot holder because your pan is gonna be hot. And what we're gonna do here is gonna happen really quickly. I'm gonna take the pan out, I'm gonna take my cooking spray and I'm gonna spray it really quickly. And then I'm gonna take my potatoes and I'm gonna put them on as a single layer on the pan. So even though the potatoes have oil on them, you still need to use cooking oil, okay? And then when I put the potatoes on the pan, you're gonna listen for the sizzle. I'm just gonna take my pan out. Whew, it's hot. Take my oil or my cooking spray. It's actually important to use cooking spray and not oil at this point. So now, listen closely. That sizzle is what's gonna crisp up your potatoes. So you want that sizzle. So now look, I'm not letting the potato chunks climb up on each other. I'm trying to spread them out. Then again, take your pot holder, put it back in the oven, and then we're gonna set the timer for 20 to 25 minutes. I'm actually gonna set mine for 25 right at the start. And then we're gonna check them. Our potatoes are in the oven. But before we actually go any farther, I want to share what fork tender means. Because if you see at the very last, it says, when potatoes are fork tender, they're done. So what does that mean? So here I have a raw potato, or half a potato, and a cooked half a potato. Now, fork tender means that it can go in, it's tender to the fork. And it's just really easy. It's done. It goes in nicely. A raw potato or one that's not cooked, you're gonna actually have to put a bunch of pressure to actually get it in and out. So it's not tender to the fork. In fact, it doesn't want to go in. So when we're looking at fork tender, when we actually take our potatoes out, we're gonna be looking, can our fork go in it easily? Now, I have already done my dishes, but right now, if you haven't, it's a perfect time to get your bowl, to get your spoons, your knives, and go ahead and get them washed up. And after you get them washed up, then we'll continue on. My timer is going off, so I'm gonna go ahead and check them and see if they're fork tender. Okay, so I'm gonna take one of the bigger pieces. Oh yeah, it slid right in. And you can actually see there's a little bit of a crust on there. In fact, you can still hear some of that sizzle. And if I turn them, they're gonna sizzle some more. Oh yeah, that's fork tender. So these are actually ready to eat. Now, some in my family have liked to put cheese on them. I don't. My girls and I, we just like to eat them straight. But my husband likes to put cheese on them. Either way, this is a great side dish, or it can actually be a main dish. Especially if you have taco night and you're not a hamburger person, you can go ahead and use these. See you later.